Hello and welcome back. We are ready for chapter 2. And chapter 2 is called How to Catch a Thief. After many days, like a dog after a rain, the Lady Wilma shook winter from her masts and riggings, and she entered the southern latitudes. So what they're talking about here is that they left from Boston, Massachusetts in January, where it's winter time, it's freezing, it's raining, it's snowing. And like we've talked about in class, as you go down the globe and you pass the equator and you get to the southern hemisphere, they have the opposite weather. So as the boat is getting closer and closer to the equator, it's essentially getting closer and closer to the sun, and it's getting warmer. And now that they're going to go into the bottom half of the globe, they're going to have the opposite weather. So it's going to start to get hotter and hotter now. They'll be going into summer. All right. The sun came out bright and fresh, as if newly forged, and the nights were speckled over with stars. The fires went out in the pot-bellied stoves, and the passengers began to shed their greatcoats and heavy jackets. In another week, they were down to shirt sleeves. In the lower regions of the ship, Praiseworthy and Jack were still at their shovels. And remembering they are shoveling coal into the oven or furnace. That's the fuel or the energy for the ship to make it go. They're burning coal. And before it was great because it was really warm, but now that it's getting hot, imagine what it would be like to be standing next to a furnace or a heater all day long. All right, they were powdered over with coal dust. But Jack did not mind the work. It would toughen him up for digging in the gold fields. Still, the roaring flames had lost their friendliness. The boiler room was becoming distinctly overheated. "Master Jack," said Praiseworthy, thinking of the tropic zones that lay ahead, "another week at our post, and we shall be roasted alive." But the heat did not bother Jack, for every turn of the paddle wheels brought the far country a bit closer. Even though the sea route was the long way around, it was faster than the overland trail across the plains. The ox-drawn wagon trains were sometimes a year in reaching California, and Jack was in a hurry. Every day counted. It was fine with him that Captain Swain was making a race around the Horn. The captain was in a hurry too. Still, it would be months before the Lady Wilma dropped anchor in San Francisco Bay. There would be hardly time enough to complete the voyage, reach the mines, make a fortune, and return to Boston before Aunt Arabella had to sell everything. But try they must. "This infernal firebox," Praiseworthy said, wiping the sweat from his face. "We must think of a plan. We must expose the rogue who took our passage money." The truth of the matter was that neither Jack nor the butler had the slightest idea how to go about catching a thief. But Praiseworthy was undaunted. So let's reread that, because the word undaunted, I bet most of you do not know. So we're going to reread. Number one, that's a great strategy when you come to something you don't know, is reread. And we're going to also look for context clues to see if there's clues that might help us figure out what the word undaunted means. So I'm going to back up and reread. It says, "The truth of the matter was that neither Jack nor the butler had the slightest idea how to go about catching a thief. But Praiseworthy was undaunted." So you might be thinking, what could the word undaunted mean? They have all this trouble, but Praiseworthy was... What word would make sense there? Was not willing to give up, was not afraid. So undaunted means that when you have a challenge or an obstacle, that you don't let it get in your way, that you move forward no matter what. It doesn't scare you. They would surely think of something. Meanwhile, they fed the flames, strengthened their backs, toughened their hands, and slept on deck under a balmy sky. In their free time, they washed in buckets of seawater, and Jack began a letter home. He had no idea when or where he would mail it, but Praiseworthy had packed pen and paper and had no intention of allowing Jack to forget his duties. But I would avoid any direct mention of our temporary misfortune, said the butler with a wink. No point in worrying your Aunt Arabella even for a moment. Finding a shady spot under a lifeboat, Jack spread out his writing materials and began. And I'm just going to show you. This is the letter right there. So I'm going to start reading it. He says, Dear Aunt Arabella, dear Constance, dear Sarah. And remember that Constance and Sarah are his sisters. By the time you have found my note on the tea service and learned that Praiseworthy and I have joined the By this time you have found my note on the tea service and learned that Praiseworthy and I have joined the gold rush to California. I am writing this at sea. Please do not worry, as we are well and happy and getting plenty of good exercise. Ha ha. Our ship is the Lady Wilma, and we are racing the Sea Raven to San Francisco. But at the moment, we don't know whether we are ahead or behind, as our ships became separated in bad weather. But now the sky is as blue as it can get. It is hard to remember that you are still having winter back in Boston. I go barefoot. Praiseworthy says we will soon be seeing the Southern Cross in the sky, and that is a constellation. I am getting used to the food. We have salt beef and sea biscuits, which are very filling. For dessert, we have dandy funk, which is molasses pudding, or plum duff, which is just about what it sounds like. You would be very proud of me, Aunt Arabella, as I eat everything. Praiseworthy wants to be sure to be remembered. We are partners. We intend to come sailing back to Boston in a year. We will be as rich as can be. The ship is very crowded. Everyone is anxious to get to California before the gold is gone. We see other ships almost every day. They are all California bound. I think it is going to be very crowded in the gold fields. I will tell you about some of the passengers. There is a horse doctor with a wooden leg. There is a judge with a scar over his eye. He rolls his own cigars and carries a sword cane. They say the mark over his eye was from a dueling scar. We have several soldiers who fought in Mexico. They call themselves Mexico fighters and spend most of their time telling stories about the war. They are high-spirited and always laughing. I want to mention that we have live animals aboard. They will provide fresh meat during the voyage. We have crates of chickens, a sow and 3 pigs, 2 sheep, and 1 cow. I have made friends with the smallest pig and named him Good Luck for good luck. Praiseworthy says that pigs are very smart. It seems strange not to be in school, but I am learning things every day. I will leave this letter unfinished and take up my pen again as adventures befall us. The following day toward dusk, Jack was washing up in a bucket of seawater when Praiseworthy was struck as if by lightning. Master Jack! He exclaimed. You have it! Have what? Answered Jack, looking up. He had had good luck with him in the boiler room, and now even the pig was covered with coal dust. Why, the answer! The answer? The answer to what? Praiseworthy's eyebrows shot up with delight. We'll catch the thieving scoundrel at last! You've hit it, Master Jack. You have indeed. Jack couldn't think what he'd hit. But the next thing he knew, he was following Praiseworthy like a squirrel up on one ladder and then up another to the pilot house. Captain Swain turned and gave the 2 intruders a weather-beaten squint. His temper, if not the growl of his voice, had improved with the weather. How is the blasted voyage agreeing with you, my hearties? No complaints, sir. What brings you above decks? And Praiseworthy answered, You may recall that Master Jack and I suffered a slight misfortune at the very onset of this voyage. Some that is to say, some despicable thief made off with our money. Master Jack here has hit upon a scheme to expose the thief." "Me?" said Jack. "Bah!" the captain erupted. "I don't believe there is any such scamp aboard my ship. I asked the first mate to make a close examination of our passenger list. Gentlemen they are, most of them, and the others are too crude for the clever art of the cut purse." "Nevertheless," said Praiseworthy, "I believe he's among your passengers, like a fox among sheep. Allow us to prove it." Captain Swain scratched through his dark whiskers. "How do you figure on exposing him?" "We won't expose him. He'll expose himself. If you will have all the passengers assembled in the main saloon after dark, we'll know very soon whether or not you have a clever thief aboard." "By grabs," said the captain thoughtfully, "it's worth a try." And we're going to stop there.